it's just been such a great experience. You and your team and everyone that we deal with is just like so amazing to be a part of. It's like this amazing community that you're building. So, shout out to you too, because without you, I don't really know how much of this would be feasible living in Arizona and, not being there in Alabama. So, just a crazy experience is all I can really chalk it up to be.
Hey guys, Rhett here. What's going on? I am so excited to have this gentleman on the channel today to talk about his experience. Guys, please give a warm welcome to James. James, what is going on, my friend?
Hey, what's going on, Red? Thanks so much, man. Appreciate it.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you on. And guys, James has been with me for a little over a year. James?
Yeah, I guess closer to a year and a half to 2 years, but yeah, a while now. So yeah.
Yeah. And you bought your first property about 11 months ago, right? In
Yeah.
July.
Mhm. In
And
July, yeah.
we did some searching up until that point. James, where do you live right now?
I've been living in Phoenix, Arizona for the past like 2 years. So, and then before that, just around Arizona, but not in Alabama or anywhere close to it. So
Nice. And you have two properties that you've been able to buy in the last 10 and a half months, really, when you look at it.
right.
And you've been to those properties how many times?
Zero, zero, yeah,
Zero.
zero times.
I always get a kick when I ask clients how many times they've been to the properties
Okay. Yeah.
because it's such a weird thing when you live 2,000 miles away from where you're investing, but you have the confidence to continue to build, right? And you have the confidence to continue to grow. What has it been like for you, James? I have so many questions at once, but what has it been like this process, working with a team out of state, being a Section 8 investor? What has all this stuff been like for you in really a super short amount of time?
Yeah, I mean, it's been crazy. It's been great at the same time, but it's been a huge learning curve, as I'm sure you and all the other students know. It's a huge amount of learning in a very short amount of time. Um, the experience overall is easy because of you and your team, and everything that we do and learn is like little steps to building that long-term wealth that you always talk about. So it's like this big building block. The first one I thought that I learned a lot, and I thought, yeah, I'm going to get this down, and I'm going to know a lot more coming into the second one. And then the second one hits me and I'm like, whoa, I'm still learning a lot of stuff here. You know what I mean? Like there's still some surprises to be had. So it's just a constant learning experience is what I'm really gathering. And every property I'm probably going to be experiencing more learning, which is good. I mean, that's life, right? That's kind of the journey of life. So yeah, I mean, each property has come with its own experience, some good, some bad. In my case, I've had a couple of hiccups, but you and your team have been there through all of those hiccups and really probably saved me a lot more money than and time than what I would have if I, have been doing this by myself. So overall, man, it's just been such a great experience. You and your team and everyone that we deal with is just like so amazing to be a part of. It's like this amazing community that you're building. So, shout out to you too, because without you, I don't really know how much of this would be feasible living in Arizona and, not being there in Alabama. So, just a crazy experience is all I can really chalk it up to be.
Well, James, I appreciate that, and it's hard to do what you're doing. And I talk to people all the time who they take the risk and they take the leap of faith and they do it, but they don't do it with the team. And it ends up costing them so much money and
Mhm.
mistakes. They hire the wrong people. They don't have anybody advising them on making the
Yeah.
right calls. But you mentioned some different things, and you mentioned some great things that I want to talk about. You said every property is its own experience, right? Every property is different, and that is so true. Whether you have one property or 100, every
Yeah.
time you add property, it's going to have interesting dynamics to it, right? You talk
Mhm.
about some of the hiccups. The first house you bought for 89.9, right?
Yeah,
$9,900. You spent 2,000 on the rehab initially. You're
right,
bringing in $1,250 in Section 8 rent. Unbelievable, right? But
right.
what
Yeah,
happened was there was a broken pipe and it was flowing
yeah,
underground, and we didn't see it
yeah,
until the water started filling up the front yard.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that was and that's still, it's an expensive story, but it is a story that I love telling people for example, when I go to real estate meetups here in Arizona, it's a great way to introduce myself and say, yeah, my first rental property it was a $12,000 water leak. And that gets broken down by the city, and they give you some slack there, and it ended up costing me about 2,000. But initially, that bill for 12,000, it was a shock. I'm like, holy cow. And there was just some minor, again, hiccups or learning experiences leading up to why that happened. And looking back at it now, it's like, okay, now I know what to do. And again, without you and your team there, I wouldn't have known that I could submit a form to get an adjustment on that bill, and I may have just paid the bill, or it could have just been getting worse and worse over time. So, yeah, $12,000 water bill from that one faucet leak in the yard from the landscaping that was done like a month prior, right? And it's like, wow, that's crazy, but that's what it is, right? It's an experience. So that's a great example of that.
Yeah, and so really, you go from paying 2,000 in overall expenses to 4,000 overall, right? So you're into that property for a little bit around a little under 95,000, so about 94,000, right? And it's bringing in 1,250 a month, so still an unbelievable return. And when you look at
Yeah.
it, look at those numbers, and you're like, wow, I had all these hiccups, and we ran into all these things, and I learned so much. And you're still making a fantastic return on it. And on the
Right.
1,250 a month, you're still netting over $500 a month
Yeah.
with the opportunity, as soon as rates go down, to refinance out of that and get into something significantly cheaper.
Yeah, that is, I think, why we all do Section 8, not only because of the guaranteed income from, the program itself, but I think that, in my opinion, the ROIs they're so much higher. And that is a great example of, even though there's hiccups along the road in this investment strategy, there's still a lot of meat to be had with those ROIs. And like you just said, I mean, it's netting me $500 a month, and like that's a big net per month, so I'm still happy with it even after the hiccups.
Yeah, and you should be, because when you look at something that's cash flowing between 6 and 7,000 net per year, that's at this point, right? You have a management company that does everything for you. They do all the
Mhm.
communication with the tenants. They're making sure all the leases and all the money collections are where they need to be, right? So, what's your day to day look like on that property?
Man, it's so crazy because I talk to my fiance about this all the time, or friends and family, and I'm like, everyone is kind of skeptical at first when you tell them kind of what you're doing, and as they should be. I mean, it sounds crazy, right? Until you step in front of you and you kind of talk to Rhett, and you're like, well, Rhett's this guy, and you feel better about it once you get on the call with you and you understand everything. But the day to day is like nothing. I mean, seriously, I don't even dream about that property. I notice it when the rent hits my bank account, or if, I've had maybe one call so far about a very small maintenance issue. But other than that, it's not in my mind whatsoever. There's no stress there. There's no lingering feeling there. So far, it has just been nothing but positiveness when that rent hits my bank account. So I guess it's just good. I mean, there is no day to day for me. That's just getting it closed on, getting it set up on the property management, and then I just sit back, and it's passive income, true passive income.
Unbelievable. And that is exactly, you said it. That is what we talk about when we talk about financial freedom and passive income every month.
Yeah.
Imagine, James, if you had 100 properties like that. That is financial freedom. But in order to get there, we got to do the one at a time, which you're doing, as long as we can continue to add passive properties, right? That's what it's all about.
Right.
Now, things were going so well with that. You bought your second property. Okay. Your
Yep.
second property you purchased for 80,000. It needed 4,500 in work, which was for
Yeah.
an exterior, brand new cooling unit that was 23 years old. Now you'll
Yeah.
have that for the next 15, 20 years without any issues on that, right? Brand new.
Yeah.
You're bringing in 975 a month on that. So you're into that property for a little under 85,000. It's bringing
Yeah.
in 975. When we look at these things quickly, we just want to make sure that they pass the 1% rule, meaning the rent on that property being 975 is greater than 1% of your all-in cost, which is 85. So you're crushing that. You're crushing that.
Right. Yep.
I know we waited a while. There were a lot of pushbacks on this closing date. But what is this
Yeah.
second property? What does this mean for you? What is, you continue to scale, you're growing that portfolio. What does the second property mean for you?
Yeah, and I guess that's an interesting point to talk about on the second property, is the difficulties or again some of those hiccups, because sometimes it's not even the hiccups that are about the property itself, right? Like the renovations and the Section 8 inspections, those are all to deal with just the property. But I think something to note about the second one is the lending process, right? And obviously no one knows what I do, but I've been self-employed for years now, right? So I'm relying on my own income and my own businesses to fund these houses. And what that means for lenders is that they kind of scrutinize me just a little bit more than someone on like a traditional W-2. So they really put me under a microscope and make sure that everything is good to go, because there's a little bit more risk with them, right? So the second one, what it means to me was just like pure proudness, right? And I think people maybe look at these properties and say, "Oh, well, they're just an $80,000 house or a $90,000 house," but the process is still the same on an $80,000 house as a $300,000 or $400,000 house. The lending process is still virtually the same, right? So for me, the second one was just pure proudness. The fact that I was able to get a second property within 1 year from a traditional lender was amazing to me. That means that I had this marathon of making sure that I've done everything right in my businesses, in my record keeping, in my tax filing. All of these things had to be right in order for me to be able to get the second property. And by getting the second one, that meant that I did it right. And again, it's not an expensive house or a huge property, but it's the marathon of getting there. And for me, regardless of whatever that property makes me or cost me, it's the fact that I got there within 1 year to a second one. And I just am so proud of myself, and just so proud of everyone around me for the support that they've given me, because to me it's a huge accomplishment. I'm not even supposed to be in real estate. I come from a poor background, and so I'm not really technically supposed to be the guy that owns investment properties. And here I am with two, and it's just amazing. I'm so proud of myself and proud of my friends and family, and people like you for supporting that journey. So just amazing.
Well, wow, James. I mean, when you say you're not supposed to own real estate, and someone from your background, it's not the common real estate investor that you think about, but you bust your butt, and everything you do, you work so hard to get there. And these are conversations you and I had 14, 15 months ago about where you saw yourself. And we're right on track. I mean, this is exactly
Yeah.
where you have been seeing yourself for a long time. And you
Right.
have multiple businesses. You're always, always grinding, trying to find the best ways to save money, put money
Yeah.
away to put towards your next real estate property, right? And your
Yeah.
next investment property. I
Right.
don't see you slowing down anytime soon.
I hope not. I don't think so, man. I think it's just the beginning for sure. So
And,
yeah,
I think we're a great team because you keep grinding, you keep putting money away. And whenever you are ready for your next property, I thought it was great because your first property, you locked it in, you did everything I said, you did it. I mean, it was flawless, right?
yeah, that one went well. Yep.
It goes well. We have a little issue with a water leak. Other than that,
Mhm.
we're good. We're money. We're moving. You let it cash flow for a couple months, and then you call me up and said, Rhett, let's do number two. And
Yeah.
we did.
Yep.
And now
Yep.
you buy number two, and
Yeah.
you already have a tenant. We got somebody in there. And now you're going to save money and we're going to build for three. And James, I talk to people all the time and they say, you know what? That's not for me. I don't want to wait and save money. That's just not it for me. And the
Right.
reality is, a lot of people talk about seller financing and creative financing. It doesn't exist, especially in an atmosphere like today where rates are so high. There's no reason for sellers to do internal financing and creative financing options with you. Maybe 5 years from now or years from now
Yeah.
when the dynamics of the market are different. But sometimes slow and steady is the only way to go. And instead of
Right.
you complaining about that and saying, oh, well, that's not how I want to do it, you just put your head down, you worked hard, you saved money, and you continue to add these things over and over and over again. So, James,
Right.
what what is your main goal with this portfolio? How many properties do you want to have over the next 20 years?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big question because I don't think a lot of people people might not be brave enough to say, I want to get to Rhett's level of, 100 plus units or however many you have now. I don't even know, but I know it's well over 100, I'm sure. And I don't think that that's unrealistic at this point. Once you start kind of realizing just the capabilities of yourself and you're like, okay, I've done this, so why wouldn't I be able to do that, right? So yeah, I mean, right now I'm doing maybe 1 to 2 a year, but I hope that that accelerates and I can continue to do more and more and more each year. And I don't think it's unrealistic to say that I can't get up to a level of where you're at and get to 100 plus stores or even further than that. And I think that the rules of compounding and scalability are just so present in this business. It's so realistic if you just do everything right. And kind of like you said, I mean, a lot of people just aren't willing to save money or cut expenses in their day-to-day life. And of course that becomes hard to put away 20 or 30 or $40,000, but that's where the discipline comes in and the hard work, right? That marathon that I was talking about, that is the marathon, is the saving and the not spending on things that you don't need, right? So I think if I can continue to be disciplined and do the right thing and make sure I'm connected with the right people like you and everyone else on the team, then I don't think it's unrealistic to say that I can't get to, 100 doors or more. So my goal is as many as I can, you know, why limit myself, right?
Absolutely. And you're doing it. I mean, now you understand what it takes. Now you know
Mhm.
what the bank wants to see as a self-employed person. You
Yeah.
understand how to onboard these properties. You understand how my team works, and now it's your team. You understand how your team works. You understand how payments come through. You understand the vetting process. You understand so many aspects of this thing because you're doing it. And James, I
Yeah.
talk all the time to people who say, I've been doing research for 2 years. I've read all the books. I've watched all the videos. The reality is, you can watch as many videos as you want. You can read whatever you want. But until we do this thing together, you haven't done anything,
Right.
right?
Right.
This is where
Yep.
you actually learn. And this is
Yep.
where you go to these real estate meetups now, and you go from the person who's asking other people, what's it like,
Yeah.
to now people are asking
Yeah.
you, oh, wow, you have two properties in
Totally.
the state. How do you do that?
Yeah. Totally.
You
Yeah.
know,
I mean, like literally, I've got, a new book right in front of me from the bookstore last night. And, yeah, that's the big difference is you can read books. And I think that's great. I'm always reading and educating myself, watching YouTube videos, but there's got to be a day where you just say, okay, I've got to do it. You know what I mean? And I do think that, that first step was giving you a call and saying, hey, Rhett, like, I want to do this thing. And you really made it like concrete and possible. So, if that first step is calling you, then, whoever's out there listening to this, give Rhett a call because it's real. And this is something that is very attainable, even for someone like me who, again, going back to the I'm not supposed to be that guy. Well, if I'm not supposed to be that guy, then if you think that same way, you can, because I'm doing it, right? So, sometimes it's just a phone call to Rhett, and I think that gets things going.
Well, I appreciate that, James. And, this is your first ever dabbling in Section 8. What made you even consider Section 8? Like what drove you to that? And what has that been like for you? Are you happy with that decision?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm glad you asked that because there's so many ways of doing real estate. I mean, there's house hacking, there's, people that will invest in their local area, even if it costs them more money as far as acquisition. There's short-term rentals like Airbnbs, and there's just so much going on in the real estate space. It's kind of like, how do you pick what you do, right? For me, as I was reading those books and watching YouTube videos, I came across Section 8, had no idea what it even was probably 2 years ago, right? And I came across this idea that you could get guaranteed rent and you could do this at a low acquisition cost, which was appealing to me because I'm not a millionaire or really a big high earner yet. So I didn't have a lot of money to inject into the market, right? So guaranteed rent from Section 8, the program, the low acquisition cost was extremely appealing to me as long as you were in the correct markets, and the scalability behind it, the fact that you can do this a lot very quickly, if you do it right. And those things to me were the most important. I think that the guaranteed rent is the best thing because you can sleep really good at night, not worrying about whether rent is going to get paid. I mean, that in itself is just like probably the biggest benefit to the program. And I think once you work around or talk to people and get away from these stigmas that the renters are bad renters, I think that once you avoid that stigma, it's like almost, why wouldn't you do it, right? I mean, as long as you have the right people in place, like you yourself and your team, I just don't understand why I would do much of any other real estate unless I just had such an abundance of money. But that's not the case, right? So this just makes a lot of sense. And I think for anyone getting into real estate, it makes a lot of sense because of those low acquisition costs and kind of the safety net that the program provides.
Yeah, I mean, James, you're 100% on with everything you're saying.
Yeah.
You talk about getting in at a lower cost, even though you're investing 2,000 miles away. You're talking
Yeah.
about relying on a good team that is looking out for your best interests. You're talking about guaranteed rent. I mean, when I talk to people about this stuff, they say, too good to be true. No, it's all too good to be true. It doesn't make sense. Yeah, why
Right.
would this be the case? It's just there's no
Yeah.
downsides to this. And what
Right.
I tell people is I've made all these mistakes over a decade plus of investing out of state and buying Section 8 units. I've already made all the mistakes. I've screwed
Right.
everything up. I've hired the wrong people. I've bought the wrong properties. I've invested in the wrong neighborhoods. I've done all that. Let me show you what to buy, how to buy it. Here's the team, right?
Mhm.
All you have to do is do it. And that's
Right.
what you're doing. And I'm so proud of you, James. And guys, please, James is a wealth of knowledge in an extremely short amount of time. He asks a ton of questions. When he gets his hands dirty, he's always communicating with property management. He's learning about tenants. He's doing what he needs to do to learn. And he's a reader, but he understands the difference between research and reading and watching videos, but also being hands-on to learn. And guys, if you're interested in doing that, send me an email in the description below. And please, please, please leave James some comments on this video. He will get in that comment section. He always does. He'll comment back to you. He'll answer questions. If you really want to talk to him, hop in the Discord group. There's a link to that below as well. He's extremely active in the Discord. when you have the ability to communicate with people who are trying to do the same thing that you're doing and who are successful in doing it, that is where all the value is. So guys, please, please, please leave your questions and comments for James below. I can't wait to see you next time. James, thank you so much for coming on the channel today.
Yeah, thank you, Rhett. Appreciate it.
And guys, we'll see you next time.